An Unexpected Future by A Series on AO3. Episode 6, Chapter 6. In my defense, I was left unsupervised. Five stared at the charred monstrosity of hilariously overcooked rice and overspiced, still partially frozen, chicken. The cookbook, already discarded and deemed useless. He took a deep breath. Luckily, he had a five-step plan to salvage the situation. Step 1. Dispose of the evidence. How are you feeling? Hisashi asked, as he guided Aizawa into the car. Aizawa groaned, and practically fell into his seat before bringing in his legs. Are you sure you don't want to stay another night? Hisashi asked. Aizawa glared up at his partner from under his bandages. Just drive the damn car. Hisashi, ever stubborn, put a hand to his ear, cupping it behind his hearing aid. What was that? Thank you, my best friend in the whole world and platonic love of my life, for caring about my well-being and putting up with my self-destructive tendencies so that I might know some peace of mind by returning to class long before the doctor recommends it. Aizawa sighed, letting the back of his head hit the headrest behind him. Sorry, that last dose of painkillers hasn't quite hit yet. Sounds like it. Hisashi shut Aizawa's door and made his way to the driver's seat. If you need a nap on the way home, you should do it. Not just for you. The kid's too jumpy to be able to handle meeting you in a bad mood right now. Aizawa grumbles, a pain of guilt in his chest. He had already forgotten that they had company waiting for them. How's he doing? Step 1.1. Panic when you can't clean the melted rice off of the bottom and you discolored both the rice and the pot with bleach. Step 1.2. Give up on the plot. Teleport it out to the dumpster with the rest of the trash. Better than expected, all things considered, Hisashi said, pulling out of the parking lot. He looks like he got about as much sleep as you last night, but other than that, he's been doing pretty well. He didn't have any trouble talking back to me yesterday, though he seemed more on edge today. Of course he is. He didn't sleep, Aizawa pointed out, resting his eyes as they drove. Step 2. Create a cross breeze. He's really nervous about meeting you, Hisashi said. That made Aizawa pause. Me. Why? Not sure. He changed the subject when I tried to convince him that you already liked him, though he probably just thinks you're cool. Hisashi chuckled. I think it might be deeper than that. Aizawa said, vaguely remembering the boy comparing Aizawa to his brother in the hospital. Step 3. Put everything else back exactly where it had been. Have you looked into the boy's family? Aizawa asked. And do you have a proper name for him yet? Hisashi sighed. Not on the name front. He refused to come up with one. I'm liking the nickname Sunshine today, though. Aizawa didn't have the energy to roll his eyes, but he did in spirit. Step 4. Fabricate a plausible cover story. Principal Nedzu actually advised against looking into Sunshine's past. Hisashi continued. Something preserving the timeline or whatever. I actually started researching anyways, but as I was typing his family name into the search bar, it ended up feeling like an invasion of privacy. What if I accidentally learned his name before he was ready to give it to me? I don't want to be responsible for pushing a name onto him just because his future self uses it. Hence, preserving the timeline, I guess. Aizawa grumbled. Nezu's a genius for a reason, Hisashi said, warily. Where does that leave us, then? With a traumatized kid who's convinced he needs to shoulder an adult's responsibilities, Aizawa said. With a traumatized kid who's convinced he needs to shoulder an adult's responsibilities, Sashi said with a sigh. With a traumatized kid who's convinced he needs to shoulder an adult's responsibilities, Hisashi said with a sigh. Aizawa let a sigh of his own, unable to even pinch the bridge of his nose, with his arm locked in slinks and cast. They spent the rest of the drive home, discussing the boy, logistics, and the new policies that Nedzu was implementing the following attack. They covered enough that Izawa felt entirely different kind of exhaustion by the time they reached their apartment's parking lot. Step 5. Deliver the cover story confidently. By the time Izawa was approaching the front door, he could feel his gut twisting with nerves. Not out of some sort of misguided anxiety about meeting the child properly. He'd had enough practice meeting teenagers through his day job, thank you very much, but because he wasn't sure he could provide what Hargreave needed in that state that he was in at the moment. But there wasn't anything he could do to change that, so he followed Hisashi inside without mentioning it. "We're back," Hisashi called out in English, but Hargreaves, already in the process of getting up before Hisashi opened his mouth. The boy stood at attention, better than any of Aizawa's students ever had, with his finely pressed uniforms, shoulders back, and full attention on them. It almost would have been admirable if Aizawa hadn't known the reason he was that way, that he was groomed to be that way since birth. "Yamada, Eraserhead," Hargreaves greeted, nodding to each of them in turn. "Everything good while we were gone?" Hisashi asked, switching from his shoes to his slippers, and keeping a hand on Aizawa's back to help him do the same. "Pretty uneventful," Hargreaves reported, a touch of arrogance and insincerity in his body language, and tone typical of an overly confident teenager. He gestured to a thick packet that laid open on the coffee table, in front of the couch he'd previously been lounging on. "I've been working on this assignment that President Nedzu gave me." A flicker of movement caught Aizawa's eye from behind Hargreaves. The curtain in front of the balcony door fluttered despite its weight. "Is the balcony door open?" Aizawa asked in Japanese before he could think about it. Yeah." Hargreaves instinctively glanced at the curtains. Hargreaves winced, quickly switching to a more formal. "I've been..." It's way easy to see the rising panic before the boy's eyes as he stumbled through a second language that was apparently escaping him. "You can answer in English," Aizawa assured him. "Thank you." Hargreaves cleared his throat, the back of his neck pink, as he avoided Aizawa and Hisashi's eyes by making his way to the balcony and sliding the door shut. The boy's shoulders were still stiff when he turned to face them again. "I just stepped outside from some fresh air earlier and must have forgotten to shut the door. It won't happen again." "You're not in trouble," Hisashi was quick to reassure him. "Just close the door behind you next time, yeah?" "I will," Hargreaves promised. Aizawa shifted, awkwardly, guilt and exhaustion weighing on him just as much as his cast. "Sorry, I think I got us off on the wrong foot. I'm Aizawa Shota, also known as Eraserhead. You can call me Aizawa. Hisashi and I are going to be taking care of you while you're here, so let us know if you need anything." Hargreaves' eyebrows pinched together, one of them rising as he looked at the mummied-wrapped Aizawa up and down, as if to silently say, "In your condition?" Aizawa sighed. "I realize that I probably won't be much help for a while, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I am a teacher, after all." "I'll keep that in mind," Hargreaves assured, with one of the smuggest, insincere smiles Aizawa had ever had the displeasure of witnessing. This one was absolutely going to be trouble. And that was before Hisashi glanced towards the kitchen and asked, "Does something smell funny to you?" Hargreaves' expression stiffened, and the color drained out of his face. Aizawa raised an eyebrow at the boy, and despite the bandages covering most of Aizawa's face, Hargreaves seemed to get the message anyways, slipping his hands into his pocket and avoiding Aizawa's gaze by turning his attention to Hisashi. "I don't smell anything," Hargreaves said with an impressive amount of conviction, considering that even Aizawa could smell the strange mix of bleach and burnt rice over the lingering hospital aesthetics on his skin. Undetected, Hisashi just said, "Well, I do," and promptly went to investigate. Aizawa turned to Hargreaves. "Do you have anything you want to tell us?" Step 6. Abort, abort! Hargreaves looked Aizawa in the eye, gave a condescending smile, and said, "Nothing at all. Now, if you two are just gonna be wasting your time out here, I'm gonna take this." He picked up the packet off the table, "and keep working in my room." Hargreaves vanished from sight before Aizawa could get a word in edgewise, and the door to the guest room closed down the hall. Aizawa could feel a headache coming on. He forced himself to take a deep breath, hyper aware of the bandages around his chest restricting the movement, and shuffled to the kitchen. Hisashi was combing through their lower cabinets when Aizawa tapped Hisashi's rear with his foot and asked, "Find anything?" Eh. Hisashi made a so-so gesture as he got to his feet. "I didn't find much, but I did notice that some stuff's missing. Mainly some chicken, one of our pots, and this morning's trash." Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Hisashi continued, "The smell is the strongest around the sink, too. I think he tried cooking something and it went badly." Aizawa, insensitively, glanced around the room to check for fire damage, but didn't see any. "And the bleach?" "That's the part I can't figure out," Hisashi admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "The best I could figure he was trying to clean with it, though I don't know why he'd fish it out of the laundry closet for this when there's dish soap right there." Aizawa sighed, his broken arms feeling heavy. "Even if it was just a mistake, I don't like that he lied about it. He needs to learn that this kind of behavior is unacceptable. Covering up mistakes and lack of communication could get people killed." "Yeah, I agree," Hisashi said with a grimace. "I'll talk to him about it. In the meantime," Hisashi put a gentle hand on Aizawa's back, and Aizawa immediately melted into the familiar touch, resting his head on Yamada's shoulder. "You look dead on your feet. Come on, I've already got the bed set up for you." "Fine." Aizawa concealed, eyes already closed, as Hisashi guided him to their bedroom. "But wake me up if you need backup." Hisashi snorted. "Please, I've already been managing him for a day longer than you. I'll be fine." "Okay." Aizawa concealed, letting Hisashi ease him into bed. "But I'll be here." "I can't forget it," Hisashi assured him, pressing a kiss to Aizawa's temple. As Aizawa drifted out of consciousness, there was one thing he was sure of. Hargreaves was going to be a repeated source of headaches. Nice, we got to see a little bit of, quote-unquote, eraser mic? Can I say that it's a racer mic, considering it's queer platonic? Somebody in the comments, please. Someone, please. They had cute moments. Yeah. Whether platonic or romantic relationship or not, it was cute. Point. Cute. It doesn't have to be romantic nor platonic. It could be completely strangers. Yep. I am treading on light. Not a light. I'm treading on a what's that called? When it's like a rope and like it's over a cliff, or not necessarily like a cliff, but like a deep, thingy, and then you're like tightrope. There you go. Oh my god, it took me a while to remember it, but I want to talk about specifically Hargreaves and Five, right? Avoiding the fact that taking up responsibility, which some might say like, oh, that's probably not a good thing, right? And it's like others might say, oh, well, kids do that all the time, but then you think, oh, it's a 13-year-old. Okay, yeah, no. That is a little, like, why did he hide the behavior? Something's there. I'm gonna tell you, he didn't hide it because he didn't want to take responsibility. Or, yeah, partially it's because he didn't want to take responsibility. But because what you might think is a little small grounding, remember, he comes from a home where a man bought, what was it, 5? 6? Yeah, I think it was 6. 6 kids, well, let's see. There's V, then there's, Allison, then there's Claus, Ben and what's it called? What's his name? Diego, and then 6 kids. So there is 6 kids, right? 6 kids. And he bought all 6 of them because they had powers, and he tried to buy, the other 48, but he couldn't find them. So he bought 6 of them, raised them to fight crime from a very young age, and they've been fighting crime when they were 13, right? Keep this in mind, right? What do you think the living circumstances is there? What do you think a mistake would be treated as? How do you think they would be treated if they make a mistake, in training, let alone outside of training and doing something mundane? Yeah, no, it's understandable why someone would hide it. That's why a lot of the times, victims of, victims, but like people that come from a very unstable household or, an abusive household, they tend to hide when something goes wrong because they're afraid of the reprimand. Because, well, for, someone who has an actual loving family, and a quote-unquote normal family, normal in the sense that it's not abusive, not normal in the sense where it's like, oh, a mother and a father and a sibling. No. Normal in the sense of it's not abusive, right? A healthy, family. Your reprimand might just be no phone or no TV or no going out with friends or taking away something, right? Negative reinforcement. For all we know, 5s, it could be a mixture of, it could be negative reinforcement. Not in the sense of he gets his phone taken away, but in the sense of, I don't know, he gets put in solitary confinement. Or it could be positive reinforcement. Well, he gets some hits, gets a little beating. And not in the small way. I mean, like, the big way. Like, clearly this type of behavior isn't something that's learned past. I wouldn't put it past this father of theirs to do that. Obviously, I've seen the show. It's been a while. As I said, I got to, like, half of season 2. I haven't even finished season 2. I don't even want to finish it, if I'm being honest. But, not that it's a bad show. I think it's a really, really interesting show with a really good premise. It's just, I was watching it with someone. And we were watching it together, and we would sit down, and I would tell them my notes, and they would tell me, and they would, go on long rants about it, and how much they really, really loved it, and how it was, like, their whole hyperfixation at the moment. And then, obviously, that person isn't in my life anymore, so it's kind of awkward now on me, so I just need to get used to it. But hopefully this is actually going to get me a little more accustomed to it, so I'll be able to watch it. It's the sad thing about linking people to stuff. Like, Hello Kitty, specifically Kurumi, I think it's her name, is heavily linked with an abuser of mine from the past. So it's to the point where, like, I see Kurumi and I'm like, my immediate thought is that person, and it's horrible because it's making me, like, not like Hello Kitty and Hello Kitty stuff in general. I avoid the Hello Kitty store because I just don't want to be thinking about that person. And obviously with this other person, it's not like they were, like, a horrible person, but it's just, like, it's awkward now. We're not friends. We didn't really necessarily end on good terms either, so it's like a awkward moment situation, But, yeah, as I said, I've seen the show, but, this person could have added the headcanon of, like, abuse. I know I would. I definitely would. Oh, I would. I like adding a little bit of abuse in my character's, backstory. Is it really an OC if there's not a tragic backstory? Tell me, is there really? Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.